Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and it's a slightly red week. Nothing like last week, but it's a little bit down, about 3,000. But I did make my £5,000 purchase, so come back to what I put that in a little while. But we are still going down just slightly because of the sort of FTX contagion, as they're calling it. Sort of other companies linked to them that are now going to lose out, and then this sort of leads to people sort of worried about those platforms. So Genesis seems to be the latest one. They're saying they had $175 million locked in an account with FTX. Their parent company, Digital Currency Group, has sort of injected a little bit of cash to potentially sort of provide some liquidity and help them get out of it. So you could see that as a sort of positive move. If they thought it was completely dead, they might not put money into it. But yeah, they're sort of saying that they lend quite a bit to institutions more so than the public, and yeah, the value of sort of their holdings has come right down with the sort of issues this year, the drop in crypto prices, and yeah, the sort of issues with them and Three Arrows Capital earlier in the year. But yeah, so that's causing sort of issues, certainly. They had links to FTX, and yeah, people are withdrawing their loans and sort of anything they can get off Genesis at the moment, and they're struggling to sort of meet all of these withdrawals, hoping that is just sort of money being locked up and them having to spend a little bit more time than they thought unlocking it to process the withdrawals, rather than sort of the money not actually being there. But we'll hope that they can get out of this. Looking at Ethereum, as they say, nobody is sort of talking about this new feature. It's actually an old feature, this EIP 1559. While Ethereum was still proof of work, this started up a sort of a token burning mechanism. So the more the network is used, tokens get burnt. So while it was proof of work, you had the supply increasing 4.5% on an annual basis, but you were also then getting tokens burnt. So sort of net, if you like, the new supply was less than 4.5% coming online. But now you've had the change to proof of stake. There's very little new supply coming online. It doesn't have that sort of 4.5% annual rate. I think it's more sort of a, well under 1%, and you still have that burning feature. So when the network gets used quite a lot, the total supply is actually reducing. So this is even harder, if you like, or sort of supply and demand positive for than Bitcoin actually. So Bitcoin obviously increases at a slower rate every 4 years. So it was 6% inflation, then sort of 3%, and moving down to 1.5%. I think the next halving should take it down to 3.125 Bitcoin per block. But that is just sort of slowing the rate of the increase, if you like. Whereas Ethereum, quite often now, the total supply is actually reducing overall. So yeah, that can be seen as very positive going sort of forward to the bull market. It is actually deflationary. Whereas Bitcoin, people do call it deflationary, but I would sort of call that disinflationary more so. That is sort of the inflation getting smaller, whereas the Ethereum is actually reducing overall, so deflating. A lot of people get those two terms sort of intertwined and a little bit mixed up. So, yes. I didn't mention the autumn statement yesterday. Probably should have, because it affects the stocks probably a little bit more than crypto. But yeah, they've they're dropping the capital gains tax allowance from 12,300 to 6,000 in April next year, and then to 3,000 the following April. So that's quite a hit, and yes, it will cause sort of issues for crypto people with sort of any reasonable amount of holding. I mean, if you've got if it sort of goes as we're all hoping it does, if you've got any real amount in there, then you're probably going to have more than 3,000 in April 2024. So it's going to bring a lot of people that weren't expecting to be in the sort of tax realm into it. Then for stock side, they've also done exactly the same with the dividend allowance. So £2,000 down to £1,000 in April, and then £500 for April 2024. So yeah, 75% cut to both. Capital gains tax slightly above 75%. So that is a real hit. They're not liking investors at the moment. But we'll see. There's obviously some things you can do to exempt that. Have as much as you can in ISAs, and yeah, try and work within those limits, sort of where you can, and where you can't, then just going to have to pay that tax. And going back to the portfolio for the week, so on the weekly, Bitcoin is down just under 1%, 0.8%, so nothing too much moved there. Ethereum a little bit worse, 2.43%. Cardano just under 2. Nothing really big on many of these coins, as I say, sort of compared to last week. Solana was a bit bigger with their issues. Still sort of fears about mass amounts being sold off, although from what I can see looking through the wallets, this may be a little bit overblown. If you sort of look at the FTX and Alameda wallets, there doesn't seem to be a lot of Solana, if any, still in them. And the hacker that hacked the FTX exchange, which some people do believe actually to be Sam himself, appears to be 90% Ethereum. So there isn't this sort of huge amount there of Solana still to be dumped. I think people are going back to the fact that FTX bought sort of 50 odd million Solana way back in the day, and just assuming that it's still out there somewhere. But I think they may have been using that to prop up the FTT token sort of in the early days of this collapse. So it may already be out there, but could be wrong. So I did, on sort of looking into it a little bit further, I put £1,000 of my £5,000 deposit into Solana. So pretty happy with that. XRP actually up for the week, 8%. So they're doing pretty well. Chainlink down 2%. Still all looks good to me. So I put £1,000 of my deposit into there. Pretty good. Kronos for the week down up 4% actually, but they had sort of a fairly large drop off last week. Power Ledger up 10.7% for the week, sort of recovered a reasonable amount. Basic Attention Token is flat. Internet Computer up 3.4%, and I put £500 of my deposit into them. I didn't want to go the full 1,000. Audius 1.5% up, and I put £500 into them. Quant Network, a new position. A lot of people have been sort of pointing this out to me as reasonably good token going forwards. It's not technically a blockchain from the looks of it. It just sort of has its own token, or what people are going to be using isn't sort of technically a blockchain, but it just sort of has a token backing it. But they're sort of potentially getting into central bank digital currencies, which we all don't want really, but kind of have to accept that they're coming. So yeah, I thought I would sort of go for them. It's a little bit similar to Chainlink, but not really a competitor. But yeah, I thought it looked pretty good. So £1,000 initial sort of position, and yes, Gala. So sort of interesting platform, quite a low cap, but they're sort of going into music, games, and film, potentially spreading themselves a little bit too thin. But they do have some sort of fairly big names on board already. Some reasonable looking games on there, and they're sort of promising a lot going forward. But it's a sort of platform rather than really developing their own games. So if sort of any of these games do reasonably well, then should get a nice rise in the token. On the music side, they appear to have Snoop Dogg involved and sort of one or two other reasonably big names. And the film side, they're sort of it's a little bit slower, I guess, because people are less willing to sort of spend a huge amount making a fairly large sort of investment into making a show or film and sort of putting it on a crypto token. But yeah, they're sort of again talking about some potentially big names coming onto the platform and sort of making some exclusives. I don't know whether they would get sort of multi-platform shows and films, whether people would sort of post elsewhere and on Gala. Sort of remains to be seen. But yeah, for a fairly low cap, I thought that was a reasonable buy. So 1,000 into them. And yeah, that sort of wraps up my £5 purchases. So yeah, that's the portfolio for the week. Down a little, potentially got some more money that I could add if things do get worse, but I kind of think the macro news at some point is going to turn around relatively soon. And yeah, I think we've been sort of coming down most of this year on macro news, so would expect us to potentially rise up with the macro news as well, even if there are some sort of niggling little unsolved issues, like the sort of Genesis trading and FTX debacle. But we'll see. So yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, what you're buying and what you're keen on or what you've lost. And yeah, like and subscribe. See you soon.